Hey guys, Dan here over Zoom alongside Tim. Hey Tim.
Hi, everybody.
It is time once again for Dan Does Disney and more dog features. This is well, I shouldn't say first or second because we've done a few already, but there's still so many more to come, Tim.
Yeah, but this is the second one in a row. Like we just did Nikki Wild Dog of the North.
And not only that, but these were released a week apart for some reason. They did a couple earlier in the year, and then they had these two dog movies like right in the middle of summer. And then I think the next movie was until December, which we'll talk about next time. Was it Babes in Toyland?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the story was with that. I don't know why they were just, well, let's just 1 week after the other, let's just make dog movies. This was certainly in an era where studios didn't just throw out movies every single week like they do now. So in any event, we are talking about Greyfriars Bobby, and you can watch this on Disney Plus, or if you have the DVD like myself, you can watch it on DVD. Yeah, another one where we don't really have a ton of background. Again, the Wikipedia page gives a basic plot, but very little in terms of background. IMDb has a little bit, so I did have to dig a little bit for this as well, just like Nikki Wild Dog of the North. So this one did have pretty favorable reviews from critics at the time, but came and went at the box office. And the thought by film historians is that these Scottish accents were too thick, too confusing for people, so they just basically did not go see it. I thought, well, we'll talk about it. I thought they were okay, but we've done a few of these kind of heavier accented Disney movies, so it didn't really affect me too much.
No, I think probably one of the characters probably had the thickest accent of them all, and he doesn't last that movie.
Yeah, so I feel like if you can get past the first like 10 or 15 minutes of the movies, you get pretty used to the accent anyway. But I guess maybe it was too much for people at the time. So this did air in 1964 as well on Disney's Wonderful World of Color. It was theatrically released in July of 1961. So this is based on a book. Tim always has the book information, so I'll let him talk about that. But I do think it's interesting that this was the second feature made from this book. The first one they made into a Lassie movie, which I thought was really weird. And somebody from that movie was also in this movie. Tim usually goes over the cast stuff, so Tim, I'm sure you will talk about that.
Yeah.
So the only other things I really have is that there is a Bobby statue in Edinburgh, and you can visit it. It's near the graveyard where Old Jock is buried in the real world here. And then we also have, I didn't recognize really anybody from our previous Disney movies, but there are a few people who had done a couple of things here and there in the Disney canon. So Tim usually talks about that as well. This was filmed on location in mostly Scotland. And I do think that shines through more than some of the other Scottish movies we've talked about, like Rob Roy, where it was more sort of matte painting based. So we can talk about that. But other than that, I don't really have too much else in the making of camp. So Tim, I guess we'll throw it to you already.
Yeah. I mean, this is the year of the dog for Disney, because I mean, we started with 101 Dalmatians. So this is the third dog movie.
You're right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So Greyfriars Bobby, the true story of a dog, is based off a 1912 novel of the same name, and it is written by Eleanor Atkinson or something like that. And it's based off a true story. And it's the movie is the story of a wee little Skye Terrier named Bobby, and he is the pet of a Scottish farmer. However, the dog has grown to love an elderly shepherd on the farm that's hired to work the farm, and his name is Old Jock. However, when Jacques is let go because of money issues, he travels to Edinburgh, and Bobby follows along. without the owner's permission. And however, Jacques dies at an inn and is buried at Greyfriars Kirkyard, the cemetery. And Bobby returns to his grave every night to sleep. Even if he's taken away by the farmer or other people, he returns every night to sleep at the graveside of his beloved, in his mind, master. He also wins the hearts of a friendly restaurant owner, Mr. Trail, a strict graveyard caretaker, James Brown, and the many children of Edinburgh. However, Bobby is without a license and without a master, so he is summoned to court where his fate rests in the hands of the Lord Provost of Edinburgh. And that is the story of Greyfriar Bobby.
It sure is. And I understand that the Lassie movie they did is also pretty similar, except for obviously they changed the breed of the dog, but essentially they adapted it apparently pretty faithfully as well from the book.
Yeah. So my understanding is when I read that information is that I don't know if it's considered a Lassie movie or that they just renamed the collie Lassie to kind of like trick people into thinking that this was a Lassie movie.
From my understanding, when in the 1990s they put out, I don't think it was a box set, but it was like different volumes of like the Lassie collection. I think it was maybe on Laserdisc. That Challenge to Lassie was included. So apparently it is officially a canon Lassie movie.
Oh, okay. And
yeah, very odd.
So the cast here, first build is Donald Crisp, who plays James Brown, who is the cemetery caretaker. And he doesn't show up until like 28 minutes into this movie, even though he's first build. And he plays the character of Jacques in the Lassie movie. So he plays two different characters. That's the same story.
So weird.
We saw him once before. He was in Pollyanna. He played the mayor. And I think this is like one of his last movies that he was in. I believe.
Yeah, he was from the silent era. Like he started in movies in like the teens.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he certainly did his time in the business. I don't know when he died, but yeah, this is one of his last features.
Then we have Lawrence Naismith. He played Mr. Trail. And we saw him once before as well. He was in Third Man on the Mountain. And then we'll see him one more time because he's in a movie called 3 Lives of Thomasina, which I believe is a cat movie. And that is in 1963. So that's coming up. I guess we'll get to it later next year. And then he was in another Disney movie. I believe it's a TV movie. And it's The Prince and the Pauper. He was in that as well.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think we'll review that, but that is another Disney thing on his resume. And then we have Alex Mckenzie. He played Old Jock, the shepherd that is his master who dies early in the movie. He's also in Three Lives of Thomasina. And we saw him once before. He was in Kidnapped, that James MacArthur movie that we were not big fans of. He played. You have Duncan McCare. He played Sergeant Davy McLean. He basically is the cop that's like on Bobby's case most of the movie. He was also in Kidnapped. And we have Andrew Cruikshank. He plays the Lord Provost. He was also in Kidnapped. So a lot of these people were in Kidnapped.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, was that shot outside of the U.S.? Was that one of the ones?
Yeah, I believe so. Because
I guess that makes sense with MacArthur.
Yeah, everybody in that movie had a Scottish accent and was from Scotland, except for James MacArthur, who was American and had a really bad Scottish accent.
Horrible. So bad.
So I guess Disney just kind of recruited the same people that he had somewhat of a working relationship with. And then the only other name I put down here, I have Gordon Jackson. He played the farmer. He didn't even actually have a name. He's in another movie in '66 called the Fighting Prince of Dongel. And fun fact, he was in the 1971 version of Kidnapped. So there's a lot of Kidnapped references.
Wow.
But remember we talked about it when Kidnapped came out? It's like it's so produced. It was like produced like 23 times or something like that.
Yeah, and we had never heard of it. Like, obviously they haven't done it lately, I guess, but
yeah.
that was a new one.
Then I kind of recognized him when he was on screen. I was like, I don't know what he's from, but he's in The Great Escape, which is one of my movies that I really enjoyed watching with my dad growing up. He was
my dad likes that one as well. And the director, Don Chaffee or something, we have not known him yet, but he directs Pete's Dragon in the 70s.
Yes, I forgot to write that down, but I did look that up at one point last night when I was watching it. But I think did he direct another movie as well? I believe so.
I don't recognize any of these other ones from. Oh, actually, yes. Wait, 3 Lives of Thomasina. He directed that one too. So there we go.
Yeah. So
the Disney trifecta.
Yeah, trifecta of Thomasini. So the dog that actually did live, the real Bobby, that became famous as Greyfriars Bobby, for 14 years, this dog slept at the graveside of old Jock, regardless of weather, every night for 14 years.
That's crazy.
And then when he finally did die, they couldn't bury him in the graveyard itself because it's consecrated ground, and they had rules. I mean, there were strict rules about the dog not being allowed in the graveyard anyway. But there was like a little triangle stone area, and he's buried underneath that right when you enter the gates, which isn't that far from Jacques' grave anyway. But he is buried on the property, but it's not consecrated ground, I guess, or something like that. And
I feel like they were making enough exceptions for him, but I guess, he is close, so that's fine.
Yeah. And then the statue you mentioned is right outside the gates.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have. I mean, I could have clicked on more people that were in this movie, but I just didn't. I imagine maybe some of the little kids that were in the Children of Edinburgh might show up again. Maybe, I don't know.
That's all I found from all my different sites were the ones you mentioned. So I think, they may just have been like locals or something.
Yeah. Because I clicked on the one girl that was one of the prominent children. I don't even remember what her name was, but it looked like she had a decent acting career, but I just scrolled through and I didn't see anything. But I mean, sometimes you scroll something like 3 Lives of Thomasina, you don't really that's a Disney movie.
Yeah. So let's talk about this Greyfriars Bobby. First of all, you probably saw a better version than I did because my guess is they probably have cleaned it up a little bit for Disney Plus. It was a bit older looking and a bit muddy on the DVD from the 90s. So you probably saw a better version than I did. I had wanted to go on Disney Plus and sort of do a little compare and contrast, and I just kind of forgot. But it was first released on VHS in '86, and then on the DVD I have in the late '90s, early 2000s, maybe. It's never made its way to Blu-ray. As far as I know, it's not been on Laserdisc. So this is one of the certainly the forgotten gems. I'm actually surprised it is on Disney Plus because nobody's heard of it.
Yeah, but like when you compare this to Nicky Dog of the Wild Dog of the North, that has a little bit of controversy because of the danger to the animals and the fact that you had actual dogs fighting, and it's rough to watch. No pun intended.
I was going to say, Tim, that's a good pun.
Yeah. But this one is family friendly. You have a cute little dog, Bobby. He's this little terrier, and he is adorable. And there's no animal cruelty. He kills a rat at one point, but I doubt that the rat was alive. The dead rat that they showed was a live rat at some point. So it's a fun family movie. So I see
Yeah.
why this is on Disney Plus. But I could also see them not having it because there's other movies that we've talked about, like the Little Lamb one. So Dear to My Heart. That one is a fun family movie that should be on Disney Plus. And other
Yeah,
things
that's a
that,
weird one that it's not available.
yeah, and you know why I think it is? It's you. We've talked about it before. They talk about religion in that movie. They do not talk about religion in this movie. So it's just another thing that I think that they're shying away from. But other
It's your
movies,
theory, and it's been like a pretty solid theory. I think only one time we were like, oh, well, there's religion in this, and it is on. But yeah, for the most part, it's been pretty spot on.
yeah, unless it like the one movie that we talked about that it's Pollyanna, and it's like, could they remove Pollyanna from it? No, they can't remove
Yeah,
it.
you can't remove it.
But
Um,
unknown gems like So Dear to My Heart, they can just be like, oh, we'll sweep this under the rug. No one knows about this movie.
yeah. And speaking of Pollyanna, this one does, I felt, have some shades of Pollyanna in it with, sort of this dog bringing the whole town together and everyone falls in love with it immediately. And Pollyanna sort of had that same vibe herself.
Yeah. I mean, this dog, it wins the heart of everybody, even like the grumpy cemetery worker who doesn't want the dog around at first, but then he like warms up to it. And then also him being a dog, he like mends fences between James Brown and Mr. Trail, who are kind of butting heads at each other the whole movie. And then by the end of the movie, they're friends. And it's all
Yeah.
because of the dog. And
How
that's
about
great.
how about when they were in court and they were like, "Oh yeah, the dog like works there too," and the judge is like, "What are you talking about?" But he like does because he does what he does, man. He's a
Yeah.
super cute dog.
Yeah. And he keeps the rats out of the cemetery, and that's great. He's doing what he can do.
Yeah, earning his keep. Yeah, so I thought this movie was pretty cute. The dog is adorable. You know me, I'm not a huge dog person, but I do like little yip yip dogs. I think they're adorable. And this Greyfriars Bobby, very cute. My biggest issues with the movie really is number one, I feel like the court stuff, the last like 20-25 minutes of the movie, I think would get rather boring for children. I was trying to think when I grew up, the only court movie I remember watching as a kid was Miracle on 34th Street, where they go to court, over a Santa Claus real. So I'm not sure if kids are going to really care. Like if they maybe sparsed it out more, but obviously the story lends itself to the court scene having to be in the final chapter. So I think that might be a little bit slow for kids. And also other than a couple of the lead characters, I didn't feel like there was a lot of character development for anybody.
Yeah, I think the main development is the two main guys that he interacts with. Like, um, there's very little development of the children. I mean, I guess the one kid goes to school, I guess.
I guess
But
they love talking about all the money they don't have too.
But I mean, I also think that like the children getting all the money for Bobby's license is very touching and great. But I do agree that the court scenes are a little slow and boring, and it's a little confusing if you don't really understand the court system of Scotland at this time for dogs.
Right.
You're like, well, who cares if he doesn't have a master? There's tons of stray dogs all over the place, but apparently you're not allowed to have stray dogs in Edinburgh, in Scotland. So
Huge deal at the time.
huge deal at the time. So I do agree that if a child saw this and they're just like, but I also saw Lady and the Tramp, and the Tramp can just be the Tramp. I mean, I guess they have dog pounds and stuff like that in that movie. So I guess consequences are kind of similar. But I do agree that it would be a little confusing, a little boring, but it is very cute, and I think it's very heartwarming and endearing. So the
How about the scenery, Tim?
scenery is great.
Of the Scottish movies we've done, I feel like this definitely had the strongest, like real deal Scottish feel. Now the first, like, I think it might have been the first scene where they're riding along. This takes place in the 1800s before cars, but they're riding along like on their horse or whatever, and it's very, very obvious that they're on a set of some kind. But that was the only scene I really noticed that, like, it clearly was not maybe the real rolling hills in the background or whatever, but where they were, and they were sort of, green screened in. But other than that, I think, yeah, the scenery looked great.
Yeah, and I think they might have used a little bit of matte painting here because I think some of the shots of like the castle of Edinburgh was probably a little green matte painted there to make it look impressive. But the whole thing about matte painting is like they're using some of the scenery that is there and just kind of adding to it.
Yeah, as we learned.
Yes, and I do agree that one shot of Jacques and the farmer on the cart as they go towards Edinburgh is obviously green screen. But I think it's just the time of the thing is that when this was made, like those type of shots that's what they do. I guess it's hard to have a big mounted camera in front of attached to a cart that's actually going down a road. I feel like because
and I totally agree with that. It just kind of bummed me out. It was the very first scene because I was like, oh man, like this is not going to look good, to today's audience. But that was really the only time. Like the rest of the movie, I think totally translates to 2021.
Yeah, because it was the same thing in Toby Tyler when they were on the circuit cart just traveling. It was obviously green screen. It's just I don't think they had the technology to mount the camera where it needed to be for it to be.
Yeah, and even if they did, I feel like movies like this are not where Walt was putting his big budgets. So even if they did have the technology, to do some of those shots in maybe other films, these were not, other than the big animated movies, I think a lot of the budgets went into the ones that we know and love. I mean, this was the same year of The Parent Trap, where obviously huge, budgets for some of the split screens and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. All right. Well, again, I knew this one would be pretty short. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about before we give our grades here?
No, I think we really covered everything, in my opinion. But
I think it's good. People can watch this one on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and well, we haven't really talked about like the acting per se. All we talked about was the Scottish accents. I do think all the acting was done really well. I mean, yes, the guy who plays Jacques has a really strong, thick Scottish accent, and sometimes it's hard to understand what he's saying. But luckily, he's not in the movie that much. But once you get past that, I feel like all of them are great performances. Like,
yeah, I think there's a lot of strong performances here. I mean, I think the street urchin kids are a little bit, right out of Dickens. But I mean, this takes place in the 1800s, so I guess it's sort of is standard.
Yeah, but I mean, you have these two guys, Donald Crisp and Lawrence Naismith, who are really, at this point, seasoned actors, and a lot of times they're acting with a dog. They're right. Kind of dog who happens to be really cute, but he's still just a dog. But they could have just like phoned this in, and it would have been like okay, whatever. I have a dog, and it's this movie, whatever. But it seemed like they were very invested. And it might have been just because it's a famous story from Scotland that they were like, oh, Greyfriars Bobby. Yes, we know what this is, and we want to do it justice, and they did.
Well, and it's funny, like we see a lot of this even today. Like when I think about, okay, so you and I have never heard of this Donald Crisp, but back when this came out, he was, a big, old star. He's been around forever. And I think about some of the older performances that we have lately, and yeah, sometimes people do just phone it in because they want to cash that paycheck. not to harp on it again, but I just saw that House of Gucci movie, and Al Pacino is just like being Al Pacino the whole time, not doing an accent. Like, I'm sure the adults that saw this movie back in the day were like, "Oh my god!" Like Donald Crisp, we've loved him for years. And yeah, he's just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Yeah, good performances all around. Yeah, I would say for this one, for Greyfriars Bobby, I give it a B. I think it's very solid still to this day. I think the story is good. And it makes it helps that it takes place in the 1800s, so nothing's like dated about it. There's not much music here. We usually talk about the Disney music, other than some of the bagpipes over the end. There's not a ton of music in this either.
Yeah, there were some bagpipes in the beginning, and a narrator in the beginning. And I was like, oh man, is this going to be like Naked Wild Dog of the North again? But then it's all of a sudden the narrators are gone, and you just have a great dog story. I give this, in my opinion, a B+, but I feel like I'm a little bit more dog person than you, so I think it might have been a little bit more enjoyable for me.
You do love a good dog. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. 2 dog movies in a row is a little extreme, but at least we close on the better one by far.
Yeah.
So that's always helpful. And so were you telling me that Babes in Toyland is not on Disney Plus?
No, I think it is.
That one is. Okay. I knew there was only like 1 or 2 from the next like 7 that was on Disney Plus.
No, so yeah, Babes in Toyland is on Disney Plus. It's the last one in 61, but then we get into 62, and there's 6 movies that are in 62, and only one of them is on Disney Plus.
Is it Bon Voyage?
No.
Moon Pilot?
No.
I don't know what then.
So in the order they go, we have Moon Pilot, Bon Voyage, Big Red, Almost Angels, Legend of Lobo, which I believe is another dog movie, and so is Big Red, and then the last one is Search of Castaways.
Wow. Okay, I have all of those on DVD, but I don't know which one is on Disney Plus. I think you mentioned this last time too. It's not Big Red, right?
No. It is Almost Angels, which is the one that surprised because Bon Voyage has, I think, Tommy Kirk and Fred McMurray in it.
Yeah.
And Search of Castaways, I believe, is Haley Mills. Like,
yeah, it's very odd. All right, well, I guess maybe we'll find out why. Maybe they're all heavily religious.
Maybe.
In our future. All right, well, so that will do it. Yeah, Babes in Toyland. It will be nice to do that sort of falling in line, because I feel like that's a Christmas movie, so we'll be doing that right around Christmas.
And of Tommy Kirk, which is the first Tommy Kirk movie that we'll be reviewing since he sadly passed last month. And then Annette Funicello's in it. The 2 guys from Zorro are in it, and Kevin McCorcoran. So
all right, yeah, that should be a fun one then. A lot of Disney classics that we've missed here the last few weeks. All right, well, Tim, thank you for joining as always, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.